Welcome to the Observe Day podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Today's conversation is centered on the International Day of Happiness, but not in the way it's usually framed. My guest, JD Pincus, is a social psychologist and author whose work focuses on the emotional needs that drive how we think, feel, and behave. Rather than chasing happiness as a mood or outcome, JD looks at it as something that emerges when core human needs are met. His work grew out of personal trauma and years of questioning why so many people feel anxious or burned out, even when life looks good on paper. This conversation matters because it offers a grounded, compassionate way to think about happiness, one that reduces blame and helps people better understand themselves and others. Welcome to the podcast, JD.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Good to be here.
yeah. When you hear that today is the International Day of Happiness, what does that idea bring up for you personally, based on your life and the work you've done around emotional
Yeah,
needs?
right. So I take a somewhat different view than a lot of people in that I kind of came up through studying emotions, sort of the basic theory of basic emotions, that there's a sort of happiness that is something that we can know and measure, and that somehow that's a distinct emotion, the only positive emotion, and that it sort of makes sense as a coherent concept. To me, it's really a question of are you thriving, are you getting the needs that you have fulfilled, or you're not getting them fulfilled. And we've done a lot of research that basically shows that to the extent that your needs are fulfilled, you will be happy, you will be thriving, you'll be, have a sense of well-being. And to the extent that your needs are not being met, you won't be thriving. You'll be feeling somehow less than that.
Yeah.
So to me, they're inextricably linked. This idea that you can't really have happiness without thinking about need fulfillment.
Was there a moment in your life when the idea of happiness, I'm air quoting here, stopped feeling helpful or accurate for what you were actually experiencing?
Yeah, I think there are many kinds of happiness, and there are the kinds that are helpful and the kinds that are not so helpful. You can uh, get yourself into a state of denial and feel happy, and you certainly see a lot of this with drug addiction and, sort of uh, compulsive behaviors and that sort of thing, where people feel they're feeling good, they think, while they're engaged in this. So it's a sort of artificial happiness. Uh, but it isn't connected to anything real. It's not connected to anything sustainable. And because of that, it is it's actually a negative. It's actually it's pushing them in the wrong
Yeah.
direction, away from need fulfillment. So I think, but when happiness is healthy happiness, it's because you're working on something you deeply care
Yeah.
about, something that you're proud of, something that is going to bring you closer in your relationships, not further away, something that is creating safety for yourself and others, helping you to be your authentic self, helping you to fulfill who you want to be. It's fulfilling multiple needs. The more needs it's fulfilling, the happier you'll be.
Well, I'm curious, before you start doing those work that you do now, how has your idea of happiness evolved over time? Your understanding of the concept of happiness evolved over time to what is it now?
Yeah, I would say initially I had that sort of naive science view, which was that there is happiness as sort of a state and that we can sort of will it into being, and there's things that interfere with it. And the best way to deal with that is like with cognitive behavioral therapy, to basically change how you think about it, change how you frame it. That's enough. And or meditation, meditate. Nothing wrong with cognitive behavioral therapy. Nothing wrong with meditation. It's just it's in a way tuning out the reality and making yourself feel better temporarily. And in a sense, it's a little bit like a drug. it's like it's taking you out of the conflict temporarily instead of facing the conflict. So that's sort of been the evolution of my thinking. I call it all roads lead to meditation, mindfulness, and I don't accept that. I think that there's actually a lot of power in feeling badly and recognizing why you feel badly, and then really surfacing the causes and what you're not getting, and then making a plan to go out and get those things.
Yeah.
And that is actually a more effective route to sustained happiness, that's based in the real world. And it doesn't really matter where you're starting from. It could be, if you don't have food and you want to get food, that's where you're beginning,
Yeah.
right? Uh,
Yeah.
but it goes all the way up to, I have no purpose. I've got all
Yeah.
the money and food I need,
Yeah, the reason
right?
I keep
Uh,
smiling is if I am hungry and I have no food and I've not eaten for the past 3 days, and you tell me to meditate, I don't really know
yeah,
how long that's going to work. I need
doesn't work at
food,
all.
not meditation.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's the key. That sort of encapsulates the problem that meditation, mindfulness, and cognitive behavioral therapy are all designed to kind of reduce the bad feelings right now. But if you haven't changed the external reality, you haven't gotten food. You've done nothing. You've just basically delayed yourself. So I take a different view. I take a view that you have to actually make real
I'm
changes.
curious what a scenario would look like where of course, I think there's a quote that give me the wisdom to know the things I can change and the things I cannot change, and to know the difference between the two. For the
Yes.
instance for like food, right? That's a situation where we can do something to, get food. Ask for food, work for the food. There are so many ways we could get food, right? But there are instances where things happen and there's really nothing. There's absolutely nothing that we can do about the external situation. In
Right.
that instance, where the thing itself cannot be changed, what do we do in that instance? Are we doomed?
We're not doomed. I think in that situation, then your needs will change. It's like, instead of, I was thinking about, I really want a better car, or I want a better house. I want, to become my best self and realize my potential. But then I find out I've got some terrible disease. Nothing I can do about it. But all of a sudden, my needs are going to change. All of a sudden, I'm going to be focused not on the things that I was thinking about. I'm going to be thinking on things like, what is the purpose of my life? Why am I here? What contribution have I made? What do I need to feel healthy right now, to be as healthy as I can? What do I need to do in terms of my relationships if I don't have a lot of time left? What do my what do I want every day to feel like? So it's going to radically reorient your needs, uh, but you still have needs,
Yeah,
so they don't go away;
yeah,
they just shift, right? And that can be very disorienting. But I think by systematically processing it and knowing sort of what the landscape of needs looks like can be very reassuring to people in any situation,
well,
because you don't have to come up with the words for it. You don't have to come up with these concepts. They exist already. You just have to learn them. So,
yeah.
yeah,
From your perspective, why do you think happiness has become such a dominant goal in modern culture?
I think it's because people don't know what it is. All they know is that it's not bad, right? That it's pleasant, and they'd rather feel pleasant than unpleasant.
Yeah,
But I think if you ask people what is happiness, they're going to really struggle to tell you what that is. Uh, and I think it's because it's not a very well defined concept. And I'm hoping that what I'm doing in my work is going to help people to define it. So they're obsessed with this thing. I don't want to feel bad. I want to feel good. That's fine, but uh, I don't think that's nearly enough. There's obviously, in a lot of research that says there's a social component
yeah,
to it. If you have good social relationships, that's going to make you more happy, right? Another way of thinking about that is, I have a bunch of social needs, and to the extent that those needs are fulfilled,
yeah,
I'm going to be happy, right?
yeah,
But you also have material needs. You have a need to have a job. You have a need to have autonomy in that job. You have a need for immersion in something important to you, a need for some sort of success, achievement, a need for safety, a need for being able to speak in your own voice and be free, a need to kind of push yourself, a need for justice and ethics and a higher purpose. All those are real needs. Uh, And
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observe Day newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
if we meet those needs, we will be happy because we're going to have a sense of fulfillment, which I think is much deeper and much more lasting than a sort of elation that you would get from, going on a roller coaster or watching fireworks, or, it's like those are fleeting feelings. They're not, that's not true happiness.
Oh,
True happiness is need fulfillment.
yeah, need fulfillment. In a short while, we'll get to those two keywords. But I want us to look at how the conversation changes when we shift from happiness as a performance or achievement to those two words you mentioned, need and fulfillment. Yeah. I'm a happiness expert because I spoke to JD Pincus. People are not going to know. When I just start dropping lines, they're like, wow, this guy he's so understand the concept. I'm like, you don't know. I've spoken to I have a great teacher. Yeah, I hope the question was not lost in all those extra curricular commentary.
So could you restate it
Okay,
again? Because I think I did get.
yeah. How does focusing on emotional needs and fulfillment shift the conversation
Oh, okay.
away from happiness as a performance or achievement?
Yes. Okay. So, uh, need fulfillment, I think, is at the heart of it because it's letting you, first of all, accept that you have a bunch of positive needs. Promotion needs. I want more of the good. And I think a lot of people think that's what happiness is, more of the good. But you also have needs for less of the bad,
Hmm.
right? In every single one of those areas, there's more of the good, which we call promotion needs, and less of the bad, which we call prevention needs. So I can be just as motivated to want to feel relief from feeling oppressed, as I have positive needs for feeling free, right? And in a way, Kahneman talked about this, who won the Nobel Prize for something similar, that he said bad is stronger than good. So those negative needs,
Hmm.
those prevention needs are actually more powerful and more
Could
potent,
you give us
and
some
they're a higher
examples?
priority.
Could you give us some examples?
Yeah. So if I'm feeling like I could feel reasonably safe, right? And I could want to feel even more safe. So I move into a community that has a guard, at the gate,
Yeah,
and it has security cameras everywhere. And I go and buy a gun, and I get myself three dogs,
yeah.
scary dogs, and now I've made myself feel even more safe, right? As an aspiration, I want more of that good feeling. That's not nearly as motivating as if I feel unsafe right now
Ooh,
and I feel like I am under threat
yeah,
and I am, like there's like bombs going off and there people are shooting in the
yeah.
street and there's kidnappings. I'm feeling actively unsafe. I'm far more motivated to change that situation than I am to go to that I want more of the good feeling of safety. So, and I think that's just sort of a microcosm that exists in every one of the cells in our framework. If I'm feeling uncared for, if I'm feeling unloved, that's far more motivating than wanting ever higher levels of deepness of our relationship. It's the bad is the deficit is more motivating than the promotion
Are you
side of it.
saying that because the way what my brain is interpreting that the deficit is a blessing in disguise? So if hunger is about to
Yes.
quench me right now, I'm more motivated to find a means and a way to earn a living so I can
Yeah.
feed myself. Not make millions,
Yeah,
but
it's
more take care of
survival.
myself.
It's survival. It's basic homeostasis. Like, our body wants to stay healthy and alive. Deficits are the things that trigger us into action.
Yeah.
So if I'm feeling really tired, I haven't had enough sleep, and my body wants to go get sleep. If I haven't had food or water, my body's going to signal me I need to go get more of that. That's far more motivating than if I'm already full, somebody brings out a wonderful dessert and I'm like, I'm not really interested in it
Yeah.
anymore, because my needs are already met, and I think that's sort of a way of thinking about this is that, when there was a book that was written called The Gift of Fear, and he talks about how, our sense of fear really helps keep us out of trouble a lot of the time. And it's something that we don't even have to consciously understand or even think about. It just happens
Yeah.
automatically. And there's an example of someone who couldn't feel fear. It was a neurological patient who didn't have amygdalas
Yeah.
in their brain. And she was always getting into trouble because she trusted everyone. She was not getting those signals that, this person is a little sketchy, that maybe I shouldn't be, walking in the park alone at night. So yes, the deficit side, I think, is what keeps you alive.
Yeah.
And that's why it's the more important
Oh,
side.
you just mentioned something that I was thinking about asking, and I was like, wow, this is a perfect conversation. You mentioned the book, The Gift of Fear. And the reason I said I was thinking about asking a question is um, there are instances when we are afraid, right? None of the things that are, right? Okay, I'll give an example. Let's say I'm afraid that if I quit my job and I chase my passion, I will go hungry and broke, that I might die of hunger. Now, I'm eating well, I'm living the best life, but I'm afraid of what might be, not what is, right? And I think, I don't know, but I think that strips us off of fulfillment, right? I mean, we get the need part, but it takes away fulfillment because now we don't chase the things we want and the things that we would love to do. And we're at a point where we're like, we're at that job and, we're looking at the boss and we're thinking of some intrusive thoughts and some crazy things we could do. Like I could just snap right now, not because of the boss, because every day we are reminded of what could have been. But you understand what I'm
Right.
trying to,
Yes,
get to.
yes, absolutely. And I think there is a happy medium in there, and that is think about what you need now and in the future. And let's say I have this unmet need to fulfill my potential, and it's not going to be happening
Yeah.
here at this job, right? So what is it that you need to make that happen? You probably need to at least have a part-time job, so you've got some amount of money coming in that is going to provide that foundation to let you then focus on the long term goal, so you're not, cutting everything and jumping out the window with no parachute.
Yeah.
You're thinking about what are the minimal supports that I need to make this work. And you find a lot of the time that you don't need that much. But it can be uncomfortable and it can be scary. But if you really think through, what the scenarios are and what's the basic floor that I need to help me fulfill this dream, it makes it a lot less scary, because you have some things that are more guaranteed associated with it. And I think the fear does hold people back,
Yeah.
because they can only think about the most positive scenario, like, riches and fame and they can't think about what it takes to get there, which is a lot of hard work and a lot of sacrifice, and to find joy in that,
Yeah. I mean,
So,
what
yeah.
you said, the negative, the bad is always stronger than the good. Like in this context of this conversation, of course, I don't want people to start taking what we're saying out of context.
Hmm.
But I feel that if I perceive that if I chase my dream, I will be living life and I'll be enjoying life. I'll be fulfilled. I think that's not as motivating as if things doesn't go as planned. I'll be living in the streets, eating from a dump site and stuff like that. But I also think that we could also reframe the not chasing the goal as in a negative, such that it motivates us more than the positive of achieving it. Like if I don't chase my goal, I would forever hate every day, and I might and all the negative things that could happen. And so
Hmm.
instead of having a vision, we have an anti-vision of the things that we do not want our
Hmm.
life to end up. And then we look at it and we are like, wow, if I don't do this, I'll be 70 and I'll still be working a regular job, and I'll still be working and trying to compete with some young high school students, not because it's
Hmm.
the job I love, but because I need to pay my bills, right? Things like that, right? And then when you look at that, you're like,
Yeah.
I think I need to chase this. Whatever happens, happens. Rather than you're like, oh,
Yeah.
if I do this, I'm going to make billions of dollars. I'm like, nah, that's not inspiring. I don't really feel this stuff.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it's best to kind of be realistic on both sides. Be grateful for what you
Yeah,
have, and kind of take the best of it, think of it in the most positive light, but also understand its limitations and understand what might be possible realistically, and then to construct plans that basically take all of that into account and say, maybe I can work, stay at the same job, where I already know the people, but I'll do it part time, and it'll be enough that I make, to do what I need to do. And then the rest of my time I'm going to devote to this dream, uh, in a serious way. So, and part of it could just be working really hard, doing more than one job. Like you work, 9 to 5 someplace, but yet because this dream is so strong, so powerful, so motivating, that you then work on your side gig with the same passion, the same amount of effort. So you're basically working 80 hours a week. You're working on the weekend, but it's working on something that matters to you. It's something that's part of, the plan and your purpose. I think that can be incredibly motivating.
Oh, and I'm curious, why do things like productivity, success, even positive thinking often fail to create a lasting well-being?
I think it to have lasting well-being, I think I'll bring it back again to the needs. Like, you need to understand what it is that you need. And I think we all have the same 12 needs, and we all can fulfill them to more or less degree. And I think that's really what's going to create lasting fulfillment. Like, if you build a solid foundation where your needs for justice, autonomy, inclusion, safety are met, and then on top of that, you build, authenticity. I can really be who I truly am. I can immerse myself in my work. I can, care for other people and be cared for. I can feel that I'm treated ethically. Then you can go to the top level, and all of a sudden, okay, I can be the best that I can possibly be, and master myself, and I can achieve success. I can achieve, respect, and I can define a higher purpose. Now I've achieved fulfillment because I'm running on all 12 cylinders. Like,
Yeah,
every single need that I possibly could have is being addressed. Not all of them are going to be chronically, in need of fulfillment.
yeah,
Some of them you can kind of set and forget.
yeah,
Someone's a musician, and they're getting paid to perform their music. They don't have a need for authenticity anymore,
yeah,
like that's, or probably even a need for potential, because they're doing
yeah.
the thing that they want to do, So then those needs go away and other needs spring up. So you can think of it as sort of a hierarchy.
Um, how does your framework help explain why people can feel unhappy even when they're doing everything right?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to, again, not being aware of your needs. You can feel like you've achieved everything. In fact, I just had a conversation with a guy who was talking about retirement, and why do so many people, they get bored, they become unfulfilled, they kind of lose a sense of purpose. They've sort of lost their identity. But it's seen as a really good thing, right? Like, it's an achievement. I made it through. I paid off my mortgage. My kids went through school, and I did it. So why do you not feel good? It's because there's a thing that happens where, when life changes and circumstances change, you have to get familiar with your needs again. You have to sort of reorient yourself to them. And a lot of people walk around sort of on autopilot, where they think they're doing the right things. They're going to work, they're paying their bills, you know, let's say they're staying, in the relationship, uh, but they're not growing, right? There's nothing that's moving forward. It's sort of just stasis. And they're just, I think that can lead to a situation where you're just not attuned to what's possible. And you begin to get bored and frustrated, and unhappy, because you've sort of closed off possibilities. You sort of, just living. You're just sort of taking up space, going through the motions, and
Yeah,
that's one of the values of the model. I think, is to say, okay, yes, let's say you feel some sense of autonomy. Yes, you feel basically, financial security. Yes, you feel generally included, and you feel that there's basic justice. But what are you going to use that for? Like, are you just going to live in that state and just like ho hum? Or are you going to then use that as a platform to push? to say, okay, I am going to look for problems where people are not behaving ethically, and I'm going to point that out so that people are treating each other better. Or am I going to try to build a world that's more caring? Am I going to try to, find opportunities to sort of really immerse myself in things? Am I going to try to speak in my own voice? Am I going to try to build my full potential, achieve, uh, a higher purpose? All of those things are there. They build on each other, and you can easily get stuck, halfway up. Like you can say, okay, I've got the minimum, the boxes checked off. Like as you were saying, someone's like doing all the right things, they pay their taxes, they're not in trouble, they go to their job.
Yeah.
That's okay. They've graduated from the foundational level of needs, but there are two other levels. And you have to open your eyes to what's possible. And those are the growth needs. Now we're not talking about deficits and removing negatives. Now we're talking about positive growth. And I think if people aren't aware of that, or they don't accept it, they don't let it in to their life, then they will be dissatisfied.
If listeners walk away from this episode remembering one thing about happiness after today, something that stays with them beyond this date, what would you hope that is?
Yeah, I guess I'd come back to the concept of need fulfillment. There's these 12 needs that we all share universally, and I didn't invent any of them. These are all things that have extensive literatures behind every single one of them. And if we kind of just go through life without thinking about them, without kind of consciously examining them, then we can go astray very easily, and we can end up dissatisfied and feeling incomplete. If you do take the time to kind of learn about them, understand them, really, really seriously answer the question, are my needs in this area being met or not? And to what extent are they being met? I think then you can come up with a very clear plan that is going to lead you to authentic, lasting happiness, because you've actually identified what it is you need, not what, the media tells you, not what social media tells you, not what advertising tells you need, or what your neighbor tells you need, but what you really need in your life. And you go and you attain that, and keep pushing yourself higher and higher toward higher levels of striving. That's a recipe for a very happy life.
Well, thank you so much for that recommendation. Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and also connect with you?
Sure. So they can find me on LinkedIn. It's JD Pincus on LinkedIn. They can go to our website, which is agilebrain.com. And you can go there and take this assessment for free. You just click on the page. It'll say, do you want to take the assessment? You click on it and it'll give you an instant report. There's the book, The Emotionally Agile Brain, which you can get on Amazon. And that basically devotes a chapter to each one of these 12 needs and talks about sort of where does this all come from? What does it mean, and where is it going? So there's a lot of resources that people can use. So if they want to reach out to me and talk, I'm happy to do that.
I'll put the links mentioned in the description so the listeners can click and go to the site. Once again, thank you so much, Ajdi. Quite enlightening chatting with you about happiness.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Yeah. That's it for today's episode of the Observe Day podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.